someone feels your intention more than they feel your intervention. Intention is, am my intention right now to teach and make better? Right. Or is my intention to vomit my own frustration onto my child as a form of catharsis, which is usually what we do.
This feels so good, though.
Feels so good.
Yeah.
No, it feels
we do it at work all the time.
Good.
We do it at work all the time.
That's what it has to be named.
So good.
So good.
So good.
But
it's therapy unto itself. If you have kids, then you probably already know Dr. Becky. In fact, you may have used her app when your kid was having a meltdown. She's the author of Good Inside, the name of her app also, but more important, she is an absolute genius at understanding human beings, both the little ones and the big ones. Yes, she talks about parenting, and yes, we talked about how to be a better parent, but my goodness, the amount that I got out of this conversation about how I can be a better leader, absolutely invaluable. This is a bit of optimism. I live in Los Angeles. We're recording in Los Angeles. We've had these fires. Families have been traumatized. When something happens to a family and it's hard enough for the parents to deal with what they're going through, what are we supposed to say to children?
First of all, when unimaginable, horrible things happen, there's no perfect approach and there's no perfect words. And so I just always want to tell parents that, like, what's the right thing to say? There's no right words for a situation that's wrong, ever. So let's just get that out the window. The principle that always drives me, because I tend to be driven by first principles in anything I think about, is that information doesn't scare kids as much as a lack of information scares kids. Because kids are expert perceivers of the world, even more than we are. Because their evolution, their survival depends on it. Kids are so dependent on adults for survival, right? We all need food, shelter, water. But me and you, Simon, we can get food, shelter, and water. Kids get food, shelter, water, love from their parent. And so they have to be especially attuned to what's going on. Did my environment change? Where is my parent? Might I need my parent now for survival? And so when they're in a situation where they have black smoke around them, packed bags ready to go, a parent crying, on the phone, fire, evacuation, person's house burned down, and then the parent goes off the phone and says, sweetie, no, nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
Let's watch that show together. A kid panics. They act out.
Yeah.
They cling. And a parent thinks, why are they clinging, right?
Yeah.
So noticing things that are off
Yeah.
and not having a narrative to understand them is terrifying for a kid. And so just to start this, what would a parent start by saying is you'd probably start by saying to a kid, hey, you're noticing blank. And then this is really one of my favorite lines to build true confidence. It's just, you're right to notice that. Things have changed. Let me tell you what's going on. It might be there's a fire. The smoke from the fire blew here. The fire's not here. We're safe. We might have to leave our home. That's why we have a bag. My number one job is to keep you safe, and I take that seriously, and I'm paying very close attention. It might be we're about to leave our home. I'm going to tell you what I know, and I'm going to tell you what I don't know. And more than anything, I know we're going to get through this together.
You know, I can't help it. It's like, as you're talking, I'm running everything through the filter of my own work. And, you know, one of my favorite books to recommend to businesses and leaders for how to be a good listener is How to Talk to Kids So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk, which is a age-old parenting book, because it's basically the same. Validate people's emotions and all the rest of it, right? And as you're giving this parenting advice that's very topical to now, I can't help but run it through the leadership filters. It's the exact same thing we do with any human being, which is they're not idiots. They're aware of things changing. They're aware of tensions amongst the executives. And we put on smiley faces because we think that if we're happy, then they'll be happy. We hide stress, we hide tension, we hide all these things as opposed to just telling people. And even saying, I don't know what's going to happen. People can deal with good news and people can deal with bad news. It's uncertainty that the insanity and the going down the rabbit holes and the looping starts. And it also disallows for questions, right? Because if you give me information, even if it's bad news, I can ask a question. If you give me nothing and you lie to me and you hide from me, it leaves me even in a worse state. And so what I find so fascinating is everything you're saying is true for adults too. It's probably just more exaggerated for kids.
I mean, I don't think Good Inside is a parenting approach. It's a leadership approach.
It's a leadership approach,
we even
for
say,
sure.
what I say to parents, what parents say, especially ones who are really in our system for a while, is we help parents become sturdy leaders.
Yeah.
That's the phrase, sturdy leadership. It's why I think I'm actually asked often, your Good Inside book was recommended in my management consulting Slack groups. Are you a management consultant? And I used to say no, and now I say I am.
Yeah.
It just, the system I tend to operate in is a family system. But being the leader of a family system is also about setting up the conditions for success. And that has to do with setting boundaries, having a kind of sense of your own authority as a leader, and staying connected, seeing the good inside people and thinking about how to bring it out. And whether you have children or employees or athletes on your team, it's all the same stuff.
You know, when somebody asks you, are you a management consultant? And if by management consultant you mean, do I give advice to people to take better care of those in their span of care? Then the answer is yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Because that's what good leadership is. It's being responsible for those around you. It's ensuring that those around you will rise, build confidence, all of these things. It's all exactly the same thing.
That's right. And when it goes back to the information, you know, two things happen when people notice things in their environment and they're not given a story to understand. They either make up a story themselves, and almost always that story is that it's their fault. And that goes back to our childhood.
Good segue here. Okay. Which is styles of parenting have changed over time, like styles of leadership have changed with the times. And, you know, when you and I were kids and we got in trouble, our parents said, what did you do this time? And these days, it seems when kids get in trouble, it's the parents say, what's wrong with your teacher? I get a kick out of the criticisms older generations had of younger generations, like, damn this generation. We're like, well, wait. How were they raised is always the question I want to ask.
Yeah. Which
is it the people we have a problem with, or is it the parents we have a problem with?
I don't know if I'm the best cultural anthropologist of parenting, so I'm going to answer a version of the question. Because what I think you're getting at is, I think a lot of my friends, the way we were raised was kind of, you did something wrong. It was like, go to your room. What's wrong with you, right? And so in a way, what you're saying is the blame is in the child. And now what you're saying is the blame is in someone else, right? I always go back to something my son said so astutely, where my husband was mad at him because he like left the door open when we were backing out our car and it kind of, you know, scraped on the garage. And my son ended up yelling back to my husband, like, it's not my fault. And my husband goes, so it's my fault? And then my son said something that I think is so profound and actually to me epitomizes what our approach is in parenting. He goes, Dad, sometimes bad things happen and it's nobody's fault. And I honestly think the obsession with fault is like a really interesting thing. Okay, is it my kid's fault? Is it the teacher's fault? Why is that a useful framework? I actually would say it's not a useful framework. So I think we've gone from go to your room to what you're noticing now. I don't think it's every parent, but it's kind of shifted from, I don't care about my kids' feelings. Nobody cares about feelings. They had a bad behavior. Fix your behavior. If I look back on that, I don't know how people thought people were fixing their behaviors, but there was a lot of focus on just, that's not okay. Go to your room and learn how to do it better. And now there's think about it. Right. I always think about sending a kid being like, you can't swim, go to your room, think about how to swim and come back when you know how to swim.
Yeah.
Not very effective, but we've done that for generations. But now there's a little bit of my kids' feelings not only matter, but like dictate what I should do as a parent. That's equally dangerous. And that is definitely not a Good Inside approved approach. The way I see it is neither, okay? Where like at Good Inside, like this approach we have to leadership and to parenting really comes from two kind of first principles. Number one, kids are born good inside. Like, I really believe there's not a baby who's born saying like, oh, I'm going to wake up my parents tonight. I'm going to F them over. Like, I hate my parents. No, they're born good inside. And the other inconvenient truth is that they're born with all the feelings and none of the skills. And to me, that visual gap explains basically 100% of children's bad behavior. And if you think about it from that perspective, or you think about your own kid or any kid you know who acts out, oh my goodness, they're born with all the feelings I have, with all the intensity, and they're born with no skills to manage those feelings. And at any point in life, feelings without skills manifest as bad behavior. The reason people yell at a waiter or yell at a partner is because, I don't know, they're angry, they're disappointed, high feelings, and they don't have the skills to regulate low skills. And then for generations, what we did with that gap is we sent kids away, almost like the feelings were the problem. The feelings have never been the problem. The lack of skills is the problem. It's nobody's fault that kids don't have skills. It's not the parents' fault. It's not the kid's fault. It's just true.
That's how they come out of the package.
That's how they come. So
you have to program
why
them.
don't we teach them the skills? Because if you think about feelings without skills, you can't bring down the feelings. You can't get rid of the feelings. But if you level up the skills, that changes behavior today and puts kids with the ultimate privilege in adulthood, which is having skills to manage the entire range of feelings you will always feel for the rest of your life.
You're not just teaching people how to parent, you're teaching people how to be people. You're teaching human skills. And I always make the joke, like, you know, cats don't have to work very hard to be cats. They're naturally good at it, but it takes an unbelievable amount of work to be a good human being. So there's two skill gaps, right? Which is my kids have feelings and no skills, and I'm supposed to teach them the skills that I don't have.
That's right.
And so I have a broken partnership with the person who if we're raising the kids together, I have an inability to communicate or listen. And now I'm supposed to teach skills that I don't have to a child who doesn't have them. It's a double whammy.
That is my sweet spot.
Yeah.
I think what happens when you become a parent, and no one wants to say this because it's like daunting, is everything unhealed about your childhood just gets triggered over and over with your children. Like we think our children are going to heal us and they trigger us over and over. And we have this choice. I can either allow that generational kind of wound or trauma, whatever you want to call it, to then just be passed on generation to generation. Or I can use this opportunity not only to give something different to my kids, but actually to like heal myself and be the sturdiest, most confident version of me. And when you do that at the same time, it's like addicting. It's amazing. And it's hard work.
Let's take the question of the kid with the door.
Yeah.
And let's just change it slightly.
Sure.
Right? You left the door open and the dog got out.
Okay.
Right? So you were told to close the door. We always close the door. Everybody knows to close the door. You were the last person out. You didn't close the door. And a kid says, well, sometimes bad things just happen and it's nobody's fault. What is the right thing to say when they should have actually closed the door and they shirked a responsibility?
Right. I just think fault, it's actually powerful to be, I don't know if it's a useful framework for anything. Fault is inherently shameful. Shame makes people freeze. Freeze is anti-learning. Seems ineffective.
Okay.
So first of all, someone feels your intention more than they feel your intervention.
So I know you didn't mean to leave the door open.
So intention is, my intention right now to teach and make better? Right. Or is my intention to...
Oh, the intention of the parent, okay.
Vomit my own frustration onto my child as a form of catharsis, which is usually what we do.
It feels so good, though.
It feels so good.
Yeah.
No, it feels...
We do it at work all the time.
Good.
We do it at work all the time.
Named.
So good.
So good.
So good.
But
it's therapy unto itself.
Somewhat. Okay, so my kid left the door open, dog got out. Here's how, again, I don't know if I would actually do this, but what I would want to do in that situation.
Right. In the ideal, yeah.
Okay, so let's say my son is Sam. Hey, Sam, look, the door was open. Look, you and I both know that whoever's around the door, it's their job to close the door, right?